Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, Storytelling, the Power of Expression. So before I hand it over to the star of the show, I'm going to spend a minute or two just to talk about who Blue Clover is and our association with Berry Global. So Kelsey, next slide, please. So Blue Clover is the internally branded, in-house and fully integrated design studio at Berry Global. And our goal is to connect product protection, which is packaging, in our case, and user emotion in interesting and beautiful ways through the industrial design process. Now, our approach to innovation is very comprehensive, where we use the power of collaboration throughout our global resources and the experts in areas of design, model making, marketing, engineering and tooling and material science, as well as sustainability and operations. So next slide, Kelsey. All right, so a little bit about Berry Global. Berry Global is a leading solutions provider for packaging and protective solutions. We've got roughly 290 manufacturing and engineering facilities around the world that result in $13 billion in revenue. Our customer base and markets are very broad, providing packaging solutions for food, beverage, personal care, healthcare and pharma, home care, pet care, and industrial markets. Our manufacturing platforms are diverse as well. We incorporate technologies such as injection molding, extrusion blow molding, injection stretch blow molding, thermoforming, compression molding, as well as laminate and extruded squeeze tubes. Next slide, Kelsey. We do employ our 3I design methodology of inspire, ignite, and impact. This is where we inspire the possibilities through design research to collect product and user-centered insight. We ignite the imagination using design research, which informs the idea generation, concept exploration, 3D CAD development, as well as rapid prototyping. We then look for the impact that our solutions have on consumers using qualitative and quantitative studies. All right, last slide, Kelsey. All right, so why we're different? We are authentic. We are not copied, and we are fully infused within a premier packaging manufacturer such as Berry Global. We do truly instill the design thinking model by integrating design, business, and technology. And our design thinking model also consists of an environment that is very conducive to the innovation process through this integration of design, business, and technology, which is all under one global umbrella. So with that, I'm going to hand the show over to the star here, Kelsey, and she's going to talk about the power of expression through storytelling. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thank you, Scott. I had to unmute myself there for a second. Welcome, guys. Just before we get started, I want to kick everything off with something fun and lighthearted and do a quick little poll. And the poll question is, what is your job responsibility? And your options are going to be design, engineering, marketing, sales, or other, undefined. So we'll give you guys a little bit of time to do that poll, and we will get started after that. So just while you guys are doing that, I want to thank you again for joining us today. I'm super excited to have you here. I love presenting, I love storytelling, and I want to take a quick second to introduce myself. So I'm Kelsey Coffey. I am a senior industrial designer with Blue Clover Studios, and I am a Savannah College of Art and Design alumni. And so shout out to any of my fellow bees out there if you guys are watching. I've been telling stories and enhancing presentations and customer experiences for about 9 years and counting. So a lot of what we will cover today are some tips and tricks of and words of encouragement to help you get through this whole process. So I want to encourage you to grab your coffee or a morning snack if you guys have skipped breakfast. And we're just going to finish up the poll here in a second and see what the majority is. So let's see. Oh, sales and other. So I'm guessing, and design is up there pretty high. So I'm guessing that could be a number of things. Well, that's really exciting, guys. Well, welcome. I'm super excited. It's great to see such diversity in who's actually watching today. Regardless of your role, the power of storytelling is key in anything. So whether you're pitching a new idea to a client or even just requesting a raise or a vacation or something of that nature, storytelling can always help you. So most of us have told stories or made presentations in our lifetime, and you're probably curious what I have to share today. So let's get to it. Everyone loves a good story. Bear with me for a second, okay? Let's do a quick exercise, and I want you guys to close your eyes, and I want you to now recall the last time you baked fresh cookies. Now, I want you to open your eyes. So it almost feels as if it just happened, right? The smells of the warm butter and the sweet, gooey chocolate chips, it's so vivid that you can almost taste them, right? Well, that right there is the magic of what storytelling is, the impact that it can do. Stories move us. They have the power to imprint images in our minds. They help us to gain empathy. Stories can help us retain the information via chemical changes in our brain. And when articulated properly and presented well, stories can also encourage teamwork and inspire interaction. So my goal for today's event is really intended to guide you and help you and inspire you to embrace the power of expression. And here's the thing, guys. I want you to understand that everyone has the power to tell an amazing story. So let's get a little bit more in depth on that. The first subject to broach is the brief. And briefs are super important, and in most cases, they're provided prior to any project or event that we're planning, right? Look, I'm right there with you guys. I've been there. Briefs can be super daunting. They can be really tedious or wordy, or sometimes you're just overfilled with ancillary information. And it's really easy to get overwhelmed or off track, even for me. And like I said, I've done this for 9 or 10 years now, and I still get a little overwhelmed. So before you dive into your brief, I always like to just take a deep breath, grab a snack, and find a cozy spot to settle into. And quite frankly, guys, take the brief for what it is. It's kind of a cheat sheet. So as you read, focus on customer needs like target markets, your overarching themes of what the customer audience is actually needing or looking for. And it really won't be rocket science on this one, everyone. This is most likely pretty clear in the brief. People tend to know what they need. They just don't always know what they want. So pay attention to exactly that. Your customer wants. What is it that they really care about? Don't ignore the fact that your audience is actually human. All people are different and have different views. So stay open-minded, because your main objective here is just to gather free information. And lastly, know the customer dreams. What is the targeted goal? What is your end goal or your path? As a presenter, your main objective is to be a crowd pleaser of sorts and a mediator. And you want your audience to get what they came for, and you want them to remember it once they actually leave. And it doesn't have to be that in depth. Just remember this progression, identify the audience, take note of your important information, define your end goal, and then ask yourself, what do they expect to take away from this whole thing? If you can start here and use this as your stepping stones to get to your foundation, then you're on the right path. So now that we've got the ideas behind how we go through our brief and define that, now we've got an outline created because we used it. So there's one thought many of us encounter over and over again when we get to this step of the process, which is, how do I find my focus? And once I find it, how do I actually keep it? Well, refining your vision is kind of the fulcrum of establishing your foundation, okay? So to make things a little bit more relatable, I'm going to use baking as a metaphor. It's a huge hobby of mine. And I'm going to give you guys a few easy steps to building a foundation for a powerful story that stays on track. So step one is identifying your key ingredients. Great success tends to come from a little bit of preparation. So just like baking a cookie, if you're missing the butter and the chocolate chips, your end result's probably going to be not what you were hoping for, unless you're going for a sugar cookie or something. But you want to get familiar with your audiences and overarching themes and make sure that you're aligned with the problem at hand and what you're actually solving for. And step 2 is understanding the recipe. Sometimes baking requires an order of process, right? Like we put wet ingredients before the dry ingredients in order to get a specific result. So in storytelling, your ingredients are like the important players and targets of your audience and brief, and your recipe is the order in which you combine those ingredients of information to get your preferred outcome. So the message they're walking away with. And in step 3, it's prototyping the story and letting it bake. I can't emphasize this enough, everyone. You don't want to rush the process. Practice makes perfect. Don't be afraid to chat about your strategy with friends by the water cooler, or get buy-in to help you build some confidence and refine anything that might not be necessary. All in all, keeping your focus with a story is like you knowing you need butter and sugar, and you know the order in which you need to combine them per the recipe that you have, and you know how hot the oven should be to get that perfect baked cookie. So if something feels off to you as a storyteller, then you can modify the recipe. It's not that big of a deal. You're still really early in the process, so the more confidence you have in the recipe, the easier it is going to be for you to not lose your focus. And most importantly, guys, just remember that a great story doesn't happen overnight. So once I've got things in place and my foundation is made, I give myself time to de-stress and mentally prepare for what might happen that I'm not expecting. So when you're honing in on your motive to the story, prepare your ingredients, follow your recipe, get the feedback, and let it bake. The time you give yourself in step 3 helps you to sit in your thoughts, find some clarity, and ultimately get rid of anything that's kind of outlying and not necessary. So now that we've got our foundation built, what we focus on next is how we speak. How we speak can have a huge impact on the information that's being delivered. So the tone of our voice is everything. Being too aggressive or too shy and nervous can affect the power of our message, the acceptance of the information, and even your credibility as a presenter. So oftentimes we can control what our bodies are doing and we can appear super confident, but if our tone is uncontrolled and doesn't match what we're presenting in our body and it's disjointed delivery can ultimately make your audience question, did this person legitimately know what it was that they were talking about at all? So I like to say, check it before you wreck it. Take your microphone and test 1, 2, 3. When it comes to effective communication, tone is going to be everything. So things that I like to do that will help you stay a little more on track and less likely to, have some disjointment there in your communication is going to be believing in what you say and being super genuine about it. It's okay to be human. Speak with power and confidence to gain the presence of a room. Speak clearly and not mumble. Set a good pace or a speed and allow your natural volume variations to fluctuate. This keeps people super engaged, and you can also use power words to create some resonance. So power words are connection words that will pull from the main objective of the brief and help you stay on topic. This will also give you a little bit of credibility as well with your stakeholders because they're words that they're familiar with. So things to avoid are pretty basic. Try to refrain from being monotone or speaking too businessy. It can be intimidating. And in general, if you don't like to be bored, neither does your audience. They don't like to be bored either. So really the main objective is just don't be boring. All right. So again, we talked about tone and how tone is everything, right? Well, the next thing to really focus on is your first impressions. Your body has everything to do with how you're going to convey confidence. So first impressions are crucial in owning a room. It only takes about 7 seconds or less for your audience to judge a whole range of things, from trustworthiness to competence. And whether we like to admit it or not, we're all human, and perception is a strong force to be reckoned with. So once you're pigeonholed into that tough spot, it's not necessarily easy to change people's minds. So to avoid that uphill climb, think about your physical stance. Are you open, or are you closed off? Are you standing still and tall with bursts of intentional movement? Are you being expressive with all of the parts of your face? Are you using your eyebrows, and are you remembering to smile? Those things are inviting and not aggressive to your audience. So other things to keep in mind is, do you have other power stances to fall back on when maybe you get nervous or off track? It's okay to have a plan B. Things to try to avoid would be like squaring off your shoulders or closing off your body whenever you get uncomfortable, because we've all kind of been there. And even thinking down to micro gestures like pointing or downward gazes that can have negative effects. So other things to think about, of course, fidgeting and pacing. Some movement is good, but the motion of the ocean should be left to the boats, okay? So as a warm-up or a prep for some added confidence, I like to do little 2-minute warm-ups where you can place your hands on your hips and stand with your legs wide, kind of like Superman. And this is just kind of a physical affirmation that you can do this, and it's totally normal to be nervous. It happens to the best of us, okay? So don't let that get in the way of you thinking that you're making progress. So as you're wrapping up the body of your story and making the connection for, as you're wrapping up the body of your story, making the connection for some viewers is actually very challenging, because we've thrown a ton of information at them, right? In one go. And I like to offer a bit of cliff notes, if you will, section to my presentations in the form of storyboards. So storyboards are kind of like treasure maps in my mind. They allow us to show the audience the path and the intention, and of course, the X marks the spot place that we want to end. We always want to end with a goal, and we always want to get the treasure, right? So it takes time to develop that information, and for every map, there is a key. So make sure that you remember to save your data and observations through the whole project to make it easier to pull out the highlights, and give yourself some time. If you forget to document your steps or gather information along the way, you might end up walking around in circles feeling lost, or a lot of times what I think happens is that we end up just giving up out of frustration. So I've broken down some exercises and activities that help me to gather my keynotes, and many of these will apply to any story that you're trying to summarize, but don't feel pressured that you have to use all of them if they don't apply, because you don't have to. It's all about what fits into your plan and getting yourself organized. First, I like to focus on brands. So do your due diligence, get to know the company and the products, and understand their vision. Brand fusion is always a huge thing that I like to focus on, studying the branding and visual styles of your audience, what's iconic about them, what's iconic about their visuals, what does it represent, or what should it represent, and what can I do to use this to inspire future innovation or spur excitement. And guys, I also like to do task analysis. So understand your audience, their perception, go through what they physically go through, feel the pains or the joys of the activity, and you can use this data to support the fact that you actually know your stuff, that there's a reason to emphasizing specific areas of your presentation. It increases the power of your impact when the audience can tell that you empathize with them. So I fully support doing this all the time, whenever it applies. And next is samples. Samples are super important and they're super easy. They're great for when you lose your words. They're great for when you just can't figure out how to describe what it is that you have in your head. And for a lot of people that are not as creative and they can't really get it out, samples tend to be great. So when you just need inspiration, they're great. They're food for thought. And everyone likes to show and tell. And it's casual, but it's super effective. So samples are great. And of course, we have visuals and graphic elements. Unique presentations and custom templates are super powerful. If your visuals are on target with your story, then your message will be better remembered because you took that time to think about the audience's style and the details of who they are. And this enables you to build a deeper connection with the group. And it may seem simple, but believe me, in my experience, your audience notices all of those things. Like I said before, everyone has the power to tell a super amazing story. It can be dynamic and energetic, and everyone has the ability to express themselves powerfully. So to wrap things up, here's a slight summary on everything we've covered today in 6 easy steps. Tip one is just to be genuine and make it real and keep it real. Nobody likes it when we get up there and just try to be all showy. Just be genuine. Tip number 2 is going to be make it personal. Make it anecdotal and reflective. In other words, remember to put your audience back in that moment and don't forget to reflect. Help the audience understand what it is that they saw or maybe what they heard or felt, because it's a lot of information. We've been sitting in it for a long time as a storyteller, but your audience, sometimes they just need a little bit of help processing. Tip number 3 is going to be use your visuals. Again, give them some food for thought or the eye candy. Get their creative juices flowing and their creative minds open. And people tend to do better with images anyway. The right pictures can imprint memories and make it harder to forget exactly what it is that you were trying to get across to them. Tip number 4 is don't lose your emotions. Everybody tends to want to get really uptight and get nervous, but it's okay to show emotion and it's okay to be dynamic. There's power and vulnerability for everyone, and that can build some credibility for you as well because they relate to you and realize that you're human. And tip number 5 is make it measurable. So give them a task. If you can make it actionable or ask yourself, what do you want the audience to do after they walk away? This can empower your audience, right? When you get them involved, they are playing a role in making change and influencing the outcome of whatever it is that you just presented. And that's a great thing to do. You want to empower your audience and give them the power to make the choice and put some skin in the game. And the last tip of all, guys, is stay inspired. Stay inspired, listen to some music to set the mood right, change your settings, get outside and exercise, or just get out with friends and socialize and build your arsenal of stories via some good conversation. And as I wrap all of this up, I just hope that you guys found today's session really inspiring. And I just want to close it out by saying everyone has the power to tell an amazing story, and it's all in your own style that is uniquely you. So keep practicing, everyone. You guys are all going to do great. Remember your power stances and the tone and the way you speak, and just keep going at it, guys. You're going to do amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to Jake and see if he has any last words or questions. So back to you, Jake.
Awesome. I am just going to wrap it up. I think we have a final slide, Kelsey.
Hey Jake, this is Scott. So I saw a question just come in. If we could spend maybe a minute on that. Let me ask the question to Kelsey. So someone asked, absolutely inspiring, which I agree. Thanks, Kelsey. So you can tell you have passion, not just in storytelling, but even presenting about storytelling. So I do appreciate that. So what are some tips and tricks that you use to perfect your speaking and storytelling? Pretty broad question, but maybe, what's a top tip or trick that you do
That,
before you, maybe before you present, or how do you warm up? How do you get ready to get on stage and talk?
yeah, that's a great question. Yes, that's a very broad question. There's tons of things that I like to do. Like I mentioned in the presentation, I love to do little power stances. I like to practice very often, whether that's doing dry runs with, Scott or Jake or myself and just talking through the story and just test it out with people that are outside of who you're going to be presenting to. It tends to give you some insight on how other people are going to perceive your message, as well as just changing different ways that I want my tone to come across, right? So maybe I want to try doing some variations in my tone and my affliction in my voice to see, does it have more of an impact if I'm a little more dynamic, or is it too much and I need to rein it back? So a lot of times for me, it's all about doing dry runs, giving myself notes. It's totally okay to use notes. Don't feel like you can't. And just really trying to stay focused so that I'm prepared and not getting intimidated whenever something goes wrong. Things always go wrong. It's about being adaptable and embracing it. And sometimes that's just an opportunity for you to show your emotion and laugh it off, throw a joke in there, and then get back on the horse and just keep going. So it's about adaptability as well. Great question.
Okay. And then one other question just came in. So how does storytelling relate to packaging and your role specifically?
Storytelling for me within packaging and being a designer is huge. It has a really big impact on not only helping the customer understand that we did our due diligence in knowing who they were and what their problems were, but also we care about their product and the user experience of the customer. So it's really about understanding their behavior and their feelings and emotions. It's not just about throwing an idea out there and hoping it sticks. It's about taking them through that whole progression of the story to let them know and help them understand that we've thought about everything from the business side all the way into the end result of what your customer is going to experience. Because we want the product design to be cohesive with the whole story. And so if something's disjointed, kind of like our strategy on communication, like our body and our tone, then things just don't add up and our impact isn't as high, right? So the same thing with making our story and our research cohesive with the development of what we're doing in packaging has a huge impact on your end consumer. So ultimately, business is going to go up. People are going to have more brand loyalty. So all kinds of things. It's endless. And you also have organic growth as well. So it opens up opportunities for people to say, we've had an amazing experience. They really thought about us and thought about the details. And so they want to come back. And that's the best feeling in the world. That's the treasure. The X marks the spot place.
Yeah, you hit it right on when you said user experience. So as we present, some of our ideas aren't always, highly creative and just, cool. Okay. Sometimes they're just plain, they're ordinary, but they're solving for an unmet need. So rather than tying the presentation around the actual look or style of the product, Kelsey will tailor her presentation around the emotional aspects, the engagement, the experience that a consumer will have with a package. And that's how we sell the idea. So, half of getting an idea to commercialization, half of it is the product itself. But the other half to me is just the storytelling, the pitch, the way you present it to upper management to get approval and, get the money approved to push that particular project or product design forward and get that into commercialization. So like I said, half of it's the idea, but the other half is just the pitch. How well do you pitch it? How confident do you feel in your idea and how well it's presented? So Jake, it is 9:30, so I'm going to hand it back over to you and let you close it out for us.
Yeah, just one major thing to note here on our website, studioblueclover.com. If you go to our menu into the events section, we have kind of like our upcoming events that will be shown there. And then also you can put in your email address and subscribe to our email so that we can send you directly the link to the next sessions that are coming and other content that's useful. So check us out on LinkedIn, give us a follow, and make sure to go to our website and sign up for the next event. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.